Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Hello, and welcome back to the Love Pod, everyone. I'm Julia, your host, and today I have the pleasure of welcoming Kate Kripke to our show. And Kate is a licensed clinical social worker, maternal mental health expert, coach, author, keynote speaker, and host of the podcast Motherhood Uncut. Kate helps mothers regulate their nervous system, shift old patterns, and reconnect with their intuition so that they can feel calm, confident, and truly present without having to sacrifice who they are. Kate, welcome. I'm so grateful to have you here.
Julia, I am so happy to be here with you today. Thanks.
The feeling's mutual. And to begin, I would love to just invite you to warmly introduce yourself and maybe share a little bit about your story and, what inspired you to the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, sure. Let's see. I have two daughters who are 19 and 16. I think it's really worth kind of for just a very short moment going way back to when I was a kid. I grew up in New York City. I was raised by two very ambitious, high achieving parents who loved me completely. So I just want to be clear, like love was never a question. And they were both very anxious individuals, perfectionists in very different way, but really modeled a way of being in the world that carried a lot of stress. Not surprising. I was a very anxious child. I had panic attacks for much of my life. When I had my first daughter 19 years ago, I had very significant postpartum anxiety. It was funny. I was actually working. My degree is in clinical social work. I had been doing this work for a while, and so I was working in an after-school program, thinking I wanted to work closely with teens who were struggling. When I was pregnant with my first daughter, and those kids did not want to be in my office, but all their mothers did. Right. And as soon as we got those mamas the support that they needed, their kids actually started kind of doing better. And so I pretty quickly, after I had my own postpartum kind of mental health challenges, realized that I really wanted to do that work with moms in the very early stages of motherhood so that we could set families up for success from the get-go. So that really motivated me to do my work. I work a lot with very ambitious, high-achieving women who are struggling with anxiety, either postpartum or along their journey into motherhood. And I'm really passionate about helping moms move that anxiety out of the way so that they can create those secure attachments with their kids that we know their kids need to be healthy. And also, as you said in your intro, continue to live lives in all the ways they want to outside of motherhood. I deeply believe we can do both things. So that's me. That's my work. I practice the same thing I talk about every single day. So no, motherhood is the all-time equalizer, isn't it, Julia? Like we all know what it feels like to be a mom.
Oh my goodness. And going through it, I'm a new time mom. My little one is only 2 years young, but just what an initiation. Like you can probably do all the textbook and theoretical work in the world and still not be prepared for what you're
That's
about to
exactly right.
endure because it's every journey is so unique. Every child is so unique. And you kind of just got to go full in and just be committed. Like that's the biggest word I could think of. You don't have to have all the answers before you begin, but you got to trust that you're going to figure it out together with your partner if you have one and together with your little ones. And as they grow, they're just going to continue learning alongside you. So if you're willing to do the work and have an open heart, there's nothing that you cannot learn or, heal. And that's what the parenthood journey is all about. I mean, the one thing I'm learning, Kate, about parenting and what it actually means is not about raising my little girl. It's about raising my inner child. Now I'm asked to step up and embody like who I want to be, to set an example and a model for my little girl, because they don't learn as much as like what you say to them verbally, but what you embody and how you are in the world. They are like mirrors. They are like sponges. Do you also agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important statement. And if I can say it back just a little bit differently, I think it's really important that we understand that we bring into motherhood with us a whole set of beliefs and ideas and habits and patterns that we learned when we were children ourselves. That's sort of our own little girl that you're describing, right? And if we're not paying attention, we will bring all of those habits and ways of thinking to the table when we try to raise our own kids. And that can get in our way a lot of the time. I also think it's so important to remember that our children borrow our nervous systems. And that's why it's not what we do, but how we are when we're doing it. Because we can actually say all the right things, do all the right things, big quotes over that word right, because I believe that there is no one right way to raise a child, but we can follow the rules, so to speak, and our kid can still not sleep and our kid can still have tantrums and we might have a hard to soothe baby. And that's often because our nervous system is activated while we're doing those things. So we got to tend to ourselves first.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. It's such an opportunity for us to step up and really shine a light on these parts of us that are just wanting to come up and be embraced. And sometimes that's not always conscious, especially when these patterns have been suppressed. Maybe some of them are not the most beautiful memories that we've had. And so we've kind of pushed them down. But I feel like parenthood is kind of like an opportunity for all of these to come out and be looked at, and so beautiful when you have someone like yourself guiding other mothers through these experiences, because doing it alone just sucks. And so, yeah, go ahead, please.
Well, I was going to say, I think we can't do it alone. I mean, not only does it suck, but we have so many blind spots. I mean, most of those beliefs and thoughts and habits we're not even aware of. So if we
Right.
try to see them from our perspective, we can't see them. So I have never met a mother in my 20 plus years of work who is intentionally trying to harm their child, right? Like that, that is not the realm that I have lived in and worked in. And we're often showing up in ways that are potentially harmful for our children, but we don't even see it. We don't even
Hmm.
realize it, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's the part that, we need people, we need to be parenting in communities so that we can sort of have
Yes.
that reflection and have other people help us navigate those roadmaps.
Absolutely. Yeah. The nuclear model, family model it's not sustainable. And so this
Nope.
is one thing we're learning to come back to, because back in the day, this is how, villages raised little ones together. Like it was intergenerational learning, and, it was quite different from our modern times. But I would love to take a step back and ask you, like, what were some patterns that you noticed early on in these mothers that were coming up aside from the anxiety? What were some other patterns that you recognized?
Yeah, well, I think it's worth first sort of saying what the anxiety is caused by. We are taught to believe that postpartum anxiety or depression or other emotional distress is caused by hormones or lack of sleep. Absolutely, hormones and lack of sleep impact the way our brains work and how we respond to stress. But really, that ongoing anxiety is a result of a nervous system that does not feel safe in uncertainty and unpredictability. And, I think what I see for many of the women who I work with is they have learned to problem solve and fix and plan and organize and control their way through uncertainty and unpredictability. And before becoming a mom, those things might really work, right? They
Mhm.
might lead to all kinds of success and reaching goals and feeling good, so to speak. But there's so much uncertainty and unpredictability in motherhood that constantly trying to fix and plan and problem solve and manage and optimize our way through, it's like pouring kerosene on a fire.
Mm.
Those things tell our nervous system that there's a problem to solve. Most of the time, the uncertainty and unpredictability in motherhood is not a problem. So I think that's a pattern that I see that is kind of counterintuitive, right? Because, very successful, smart, driven women can suddenly come into motherhood and feel like they can't find themselves because the self they know to be, the fixer, the problem solver, the helper, suddenly can't find her footing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's that's why it's also almost like an identity shift, because all of a sudden, like, there's this little being in your life that you need to take every single decision in the future, and now from now on out, like, you need to consider that little being. And so you need to kind of reconstruct your whole life and, your patterns and everything into, being this new identity that maybe it can be a little bit uncomfortable or scary in the beginning.
Yeah, and I might just take out the word little bit from that, right? It
Yeah.
is uncomfortable and it is scary because it is unpredictable and uncertain. Most moms, I'm not going to say all just because I don't, but most moms, if not all moms, but like really want a healthy relationship with their babies and children. That
Mhm.
is what they have dreamed of. They might have images in their mind of what that looks like and feels like. That connection, what we call secure attachment, it happens in the moment. It actually
Mhm.
happens in moments of uncertainty and unpredictability. So
Yeah.
many of us think we have to create that by doing the right things, right? By, again, planning ahead and problem solving and eliminating discomfort. That actually is not the way healthy bonds, healthy relationships, and secure attachment is formed. So it's a mindset shift, right? From what we might be used to.
Absolutely. And mindset is everything. I mean, I knew from the beginning that when I wanted to be a mom and when I was going to become a mom, I knew that I wanted to have a natural home birth. And I hadn't known anyone in my direct circle of friends or family who had done that, but I knew it was a mind game. And I knew that if I could stay out of fear and stay into trust, surrender, and love, that I would have a beautiful experience. And I did. But that doesn't mean I knew what it was going to look like. That doesn't mean I was able to plan every single part of it. Because even though I did some preparation, it went completely different as I had ever imagined, but it was still so beautiful. But it was because I trusted, right? The unknown is such a beautiful space for, magical things to happen. And it does, but it's really letting go of that control, which is also a huge lesson I'm learning as a new mom. And, the biggest like new thing for me as an early mom was like, oh my gosh, my time is no longer my time. I can plan when I want to do my yoga or exercise or whatever, but it may be interrupted. And like, this little being, they need us, especially in these early years of life. They can't take care of themselves yet. So it's really learning to readjust your whole life. And when you can learn more on a level of like the rewiring that happens in the brain and all the hormonal shifts, like I feel like postpartum is not even barely talked about, and then all of a sudden these women are going through it and they don't understand what's going on, but these feelings are coming up and it's not always nice feelings. So it's nice whenever we can educate and have these conversations more so people can just be informed and know how to navigate, these big events that are happening in their lives.
Yeah, so you said three words: trust, surrender, and love. Those are words that I think if most of your listeners say those words to themselves right now, they'll feel a downgrade in their nervous system, right?
A
Trust,
downgrade.
surrender, like our nervous systems will settle,
Okay,
right?
yes, yeah.
Rather than being activated, our nervous system will settle, right? That downgrade, you know what I mean? Like a
Yeah, yeah,
downshifting,
yeah.
right? And we will feel something in our bodies that feel good. And trust, surrender, and love, again, they happen in the unknown.
Mhm.
That's where it happens. When we try to plan and know and predict and, kind of make assumptions so that our nervous systems, quote unquote, know what to expect, we're missing those moments.
Mhm.
I think many of us were not taught before we enter motherhood that feeling emotion is not a problem.
Mm.
And so we try to fix our way through all those hard feelings. And
Yeah.
that is really, that is obviously not going to work in early motherhood, right?
For sure. Yeah. And, you sparked some things in me too. I want to just get one thing out there. The belief that, if your parents raised you in a certain way, it doesn't mean that, you cannot do differently. Just like you, Kate, I know that all parents out there, including ourselves, are always doing the best that they can with the tools that they have at the time. I want to repeat that every single parent is doing the best that they can with what they where they're at, and there's no judgment. Like there's no perfect parent out there. I mean, I think we're all innately perfect, but at the same time we came here to learn, we came here to make mistakes. And so, even if you had not a desirable upbringing, it doesn't mean that you can't do better. I think in fact every generation is meant to do better, and emotion, yes. Oh my god, oh my goodness, how many of us grew up in emotionally dysfunctional families? This is a big one for me too, learning that my little one can cry and that's okay. especially early on, whenever she would have a cry, I would always just want to soothe her and comfort her. But I realized like crying is not a bad thing. That's just them communicating because that's the only way they know how to communicate when they're young. They can't use words yet. And so, being able to keep myself regulated during those moments and know that like even if I'm not soothing her, like to numb her, but just allowing her to feel whatever she's going through. If I can keep my heart rate, smooth and regulated and just be grounded for her to feel safe, to just feel what she's feeling, how incredible that is for them, but how many of us we're not taught how to do that.
No, and you're describing secure attachment, right? Secure attachment, just to be real clear, does not mean that we're with our children all the time. In
Right.
fact, secure attachment requires both separation and connection. Secure attachment also does not look like or does not mean that we're preventing our children from feeling any distress or pain. It means that we are with them through or in that distress and pain, right? So to your point, so easy. In fact, I think it's human nature. If our child's nervous system is activated, if they start crying, we're going to feel an uptick in our nervous system as well.
Hmm.
But what we want to be able to do, and actually what we need to be able to do is, again, what did I say? Downgrade. But what did I mean? Downshift, right?
Yeah.
Like shift our nervous system back down to a grounded place so that our child can borrow that from us. One of the places that I see a lot of moms struggle with anxiety and guilt and overwhelm is leaving their child with a second parent or a care provider or a daycare, right? And that it is normal for a child to cry when they are separating from us. That does not mean that there's a problem. That does not mean we're traumatizing our child. I mean, yes, we want to leave our child with a safe, loving adult when we are stepping away to take care of ourselves or to go to work or to do whatever it is that we do outside of motherhood. But that distress does not mean that we're causing trauma to our child. And I think a lot of people's anxiety, a lot of moms get anxiety, takes an uptick in those moments of separation because somehow the story is that we're causing harm.
Well, I think it's also normal because we're wired that way, right? Like we are our babies, protectors and saviors. So when they're in distress, we automatically are as well. But I would love to ask you, who works in this field and has helped so many moms in this regard, like what could one do if they feel their babies or they witness their baby is under distress and all of a sudden they get this high anxiety that's starting to, happen inside of them? What are some tools that they can do to kind of just take a deep breath and relax and not attached to that that idea that they're traumatizing their babes?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll teach you a little tool called the 3 C's, which is a pretty quick, tangible thing to do in these moments. But what we don't want to do is try to fix our child's distress. Many of us will say, I don't feel good. I need my child to no longer be distressed so that I feel okay. And that, of course, makes sense, but then we're putting all of the responsibility on the baby. And babies have such new brains that they
Mhm.
literally, to your point, cannot self-soothe. They need to borrow a grounded nervous system from a safe, secure adult in order to downregulate their nervous system, in order to soothe. So the 3 C's is a way to move out of a distressing emotion back to a more grounding emotion. And the first C is curiosity. And I will tell you, most of us do not want to go anywhere near the emotional discomfort in our bodies, right? We want to get as far away from that as possible, which is why we, pick up our phone to distract ourselves or the glass of wine, or we try to fix something or whatever it is, right? So the first C is curiosity. And it really is important in those moments to go inside first. What am
Mm.
I actually feeling? Well, my heart is racing. My jaw is tight. I feel like I can't breathe. Okay, great, no problem. That is your nervous system doing its job. To your point, we're wired to get activated when our child is activated because that is the way that we kept our baby safe way back when there was, saber-tooth tigers, right? We're designed to do that to make sure that in a crisis, we can do something to protect our babies. But most of the time in a nuanced world in 2026, there's not a real crisis, right? So we want to start by saying, okay, What am I feeling? And maybe sometimes it's helpful to say, what emotion is that? Well, I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling really frustrated. We have to start there. So, first C is curiosity. Second C is compassion. Another place us high achievers miss, right? We're used to being like, don't feel that. Come on, just go, just get on with it, right? To be like, what's wrong with me that I'm feeling this way? I should feel grateful that I have this great care provider, that I have this great job. Why am I feeling, compassion is literally meeting ourselves where we are in the moment. Of course, I feel this way. I love my baby and my baby's distressed. It's hard to see my baby's distressed. Of course, I'm feeling this way. I don't know how long my baby will cry for. Uncertainty. Of course, I feel this way. Second C is compassion. Third C is choice. One of the things that we lose when we become mothers, often, initially, is our sense of agency. We feel like we have no choice and no control. Our brains are also hardwired to go into fight, flight, or freeze when we believe we have no choice and no control. That's a dangerous place for people to be. And so we will often find ourselves in new motherhood saying things like, I have to, or I can't, or right. We kind of use these words in this mindset that sets the stage to saying, my life is now out of my hands. That is not accurate, right? The only two things we actually have any control of are our own thoughts and our own actions. That's it. And we can choose our thoughts and our actions all the time, right? So the third C is choice. That's where we gain agency back. And we want to ask that question, okay, how do I want to feel right now? Don't want to feel stressed. I don't want to feel scared. I don't want to feel frustrated. I want to feel compassionate. I want to feel connected. I want to feel hopeful. And then we get to do some of the kind of active work in shifting our emotions. It's not so that we no longer feel the first emotions, it's so that we have access to other emotions. So I might say to myself, what thought could I try on that will get me closer to feeling compassionate and connected and hopeful? I might say to myself, my baby's crying is a total normal response to separation, and it does not mean that there's a problem here. I might say, all emotions move, and my baby's going to be loved by who I'm leaving her or him with, and I know that my baby's going to be okay. That type of thought is going to get me closer to those feelings than, oh my gosh, I'm doing something wrong. My baby's going to cry all day. They're going to need me and think that I've abandoned them, right? Mm-hmm. And then we want to ask, what little baby step actions can we take? Because our thoughts and our actions influence how we feel. I might take a deep breath. I might put my feet on the floor, right? I might, get down at my child's or my baby's level and look them right in the eye and reflect back what I say. You are really sad that mommy's leaving right now. I know. Of course you are. That validation, what our kids need most from us, whether they're infants or adults, is to feel seen, heard, and understood. And that happens once we've grounded our nervous system. That happens through that reflection, right? Where we're essentially saying to our child, first we remind our body, and then we say to our child, you're feeling some big feelings right now. And I know that you can feel those feelings and still be okay at the same time.
Wow.
So that moment of separation that felt like a break in attachment is actually a moment to build attachment.
I love that. Wow. What powerful tools, and very simple to say as well, but it's almost like you step out of the victim mindset and you really take full responsibility for everything that's happening. And you lead by example. If you can regulate and be grounded, then you're showing them that it's okay for them to do that too. And I mean, this is life. It's not always rainbow and butterflies. Big feelings are going to come up for everyone. And if you can show them by example that it's okay to just be with your big feelings, then they're going to learn even quicker to do that as well by just modeling you and witnessing you.
That's right. And if you were one of the many, many people who were raised in a family, and it doesn't mean there were horrible things happening in a family, but if you were raised in a family where those big feelings were, dismissed in some way, maybe someone said, go cry in your room. I don't want to hear that. Or maybe someone handed someone a lollipop, right? It's not all malicious, but if
Mhm.
somehow those feelings were not from a safe, grounded place accepted, we will come into motherhood with some belief that uncomfortable emotions are bad or mean that
Yeah.
something bad is happening. And so when I say our nervous system's doing what it's meant to do, if that's our belief, our nervous system will kick in to high gear. That's its job,
Yeah.
right? So when we try to fix it first, without looking at the belief and actually shifting some of the beliefs that we come in with, then the fixing it is not really going to create any lasting change, right? We need to go back and really ask ourselves, what do I come into motherhood with? What are all the stories? What are all the beliefs? What are all the habits that I bring with me into motherhood?
Yeah, I love that you just covered that too, because I was going to ask you in case people are wondering, like maybe they don't understand why, they're even feeling a certain way when their baby's responding, in a distressed sense. And so it's really important to understand, like you said, perhaps as a child, those feelings were not welcome. And, because it makes your parents feel uncomfortable and
Of
that's
course.
okay. We're going through this together. And I think the biggest lesson is to understand that like any feeling is okay no matter what it is. I think we need to stop labeling them as good or bad or right or wrong. Like no matter if you're feeling any no matter what you are feeling, it's valid because it's a part of you. It's who you are. And it just wants love. It just wants to be embraced. And once you can do that and learn to be with it, and like you said, don't just pick up the phone or drink the glass of wine. I think another big thing is eating our feelings away. In our Western culture here, it's like one of the most socially accepted things to do. And how many of us eat without even realizing that we're eating our feelings?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I want to make sure that your listeners actually hear what you and I are saying here, because what we're not saying is be comfortable when your child feels sadness, anger, fear, irritability. It's not
Mm.
about being comfortable. It's about trusting that we can feel discomfort and still be okay, right? We don't have to suddenly be comfortable with our child's distress. I've never really met someone who is comfortable when their child is having a distressing emotion. But we can learn that I can feel discomfort and still be okay. That's
Yeah.
basically me training my nervous system to say, you don't have to go into fight, flight, or freeze. I can feel this thing and be here, be
Yeah.
steady, be
Yeah.
present. And that's a skill to learn that comes with mindset shifts.
I would love to share a little story just to elaborate
Yes.
on what you're saying. So my little girl, I night weaned her a couple months ago at the beginning, just before the new year. And I co-sleep with her, I nurse her throughout the night. And there was a point where I'm just like, I need a little break. I need to get some sleep too. And I didn't know how to go about this because like I was so uncomfortable with her crying. That's the only thing she and I have known. And so I've talked to some other mama's friends and they're like, "Oh, they just stayed like their little one just weaned with the father and and I thought about my partner. I'm like, "Okay, well, he's really good at holding space for emotion. Maybe I can just leave her with him throughout the night." But then I thought about it. I'm like, "But wait a minute. This is an opportunity for me to show up and look at my stuff that's coming up and what I'm not wanting to feel." And I'm like, "You know what? I'm going to be with her throughout the night. I'm going to let her feel what she needs to feel. And I'm just going to be there for her and for myself." And I can't tell you, Kate, that first night, like what I had experienced, what I had gone through, just letting go of the expectation and just allowing the experience to be what it was. I was so incredibly amazed at how her nervous system just knew how to settle because I focused on my breath. I focused on me being present. I focused on being in my body and not in my mind. And I just held her. I just held her. She cried in my arms, and it wasn't comfortable. Like you were saying to our listeners, it wasn't comfortable. In fact, I was just being though with whatever was coming up for me, and just allowing her to be free to express, that she was not happy with this new change. Like, she's used to me nursing when she wakes up, and I had changed that. I wasn't responding in the same way. But just to see her nervous system settle and know what to do, like, the tears came from me too, but they were happiness, like tears of happiness and joy, just knowing that like we can go through these milestones together, and it doesn't need to be, you know, totally uncomfortable from beginning to end. I think growing together, there has to be a bit of discomfort, but it's because it's new and you're learning together. And just to see the next night that she would settle in half the time, it just amazes me how these children, how we can all develop and grow if we are, if we are provided the space to do so and just allow ourselves to be as we are.
Yeah, I love this story you're telling, Julia, because you're really describing, again, it would be really easy for a mom, another mom in your situation or you, to show up all tense and tight. Oh no, my child's going to have a hard time sleeping. I'm doing something terrible by weaning her at night. I should just let go of all my own needs and sacrifice myself for my child. I should, and I'm doing this and I feel guilt. We could come into that same exact experience from a place of tension and tightness, and the result of that night would have been totally different. So
Mm-hmm.
you are leading her by you actually being willing to sit, surrender, there's that word, into your own discomfort, to trust that you can feel that and still be okay, and then to show up with love versus fear. And she borrowed that from you. Then she could surrender. Then she could trust. Then she could love. I have a similar story, a little different. Can I share it? But it's
Absolutely. I would love to hear it.
so when my daughter was about 6 years old, she was walking on one of those walls that kids, they're so fun, right? It was like 3 feet off the ground. I was actually on the phone. I was like six feet away from her, and she
Okay.
fell and she broke her elbow in a
Mm.
compound fracture. So she had to have surgery, 6 years
Oh,
old.
wow.
And I spent the night in the hospital with her in a single bed. And my kid cried all night long, saying, "This is so hard. This hurts, mama." And there was literally nothing I could do to fix it for her. Right now, I want to remind all of us that our instinct in moments like that is to do something to fix the pain. Often there's nothing to do. We just have to ride the wave. And so all night I was in that bed with her, similar to you, holding her, saying, "Yes, I know this is so hard. Of course it is." The whole night. I will tell you that to this day, and that daughter's now 16, that's one of my favorite moments that I've had as a mom in a
Wow.
hospital waiting for surgery, right?
Why?
Because I felt so connected to your point. I was present, I was available, I was with her through
Mm.
that wave. And to me, that's mothering. Mothering is not making sure everything is just so our kids don't feel pain or
Mm.
discomfort or distress. Mothering is being with our children in their pain and being steady enough to stay with them through it to the other side.
Your story's bringing tears to my eyes.
It's very, and I
Yeah.
still, for me too, because who would think that a night in a hospital leading up to a surgery for a 6 year old would be a quote unquote good experience? But it was such a profound example of what we can feel in deep connection with our children when we're not rushing to fix and problem solve.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I just want to acknowledge you, Kate, because it truly takes like, a level of consciousness and awareness to be at that state and that place to be available to your little one going through such an experience. And so it takes a true leader to show up in that way. And I would love to ask this question for our listeners because so many mamas listening to your story would probably be thinking, "Oh my God, I would feel so guilty." So how could they, let go of that guilt?
Yeah, guilt is really interesting. I mean, to me, guilt is like any other emotion. The emotions are never the problem. The feelings always make sense, right? It makes sense that I would feel some guilt or feel guilty if I was on my phone not paying attention and my child fell and broke her arm, right? It would make sense I felt guilt based on what I may have been telling myself good mothering looks like. So if I believe that a good mom is always paying attention, if I believe that a good mom always prevents her child from accidents and feeling pain, if I believe that a good mom always is focusing on her children when she's with them and never taking a break, I'm going to feel guilty because I've somehow broken a rule by being on the phone when my daughter fell, right? Guilt is an opportunity for us to ask ourselves, what is the rule that I'm telling myself I have broken? And is that my rule based on my values? Or is that someone else's rule? Maybe what I learned from my own parents, what they taught me, maybe what society tells me, maybe what Instagram shows me, maybe whatever, right? So it's a moment for us to actually look at the thoughts that are leading to the feelings and ask ourselves if it's worth trying on some new thoughts, right? I have been doing this work for a very long time. So I wasn't brand new to this process when my daughter was 6. So I caught it, right? That's the part about being aware and being willing to feel discomfort. If I wasn't willing to feel the guilt, I wouldn't have sort of leaned in and been like, wait a second, what am I telling myself right now? So in that moment, it didn't happen right away, right? But fairly quickly, I was able to say, you know, my job is to show up when my children are feeling pain and be as present as possible. That's a good mom, quote unquote. Don't love the term good mom, but I'll use it for the purpose of this conversation, right? A good mom makes mistakes and repairs, right? Oh my gosh, babe, I had my back turned and I wasn't paying attention. And that's when you fell. My goodness. I am so sorry that I wasn't paying attention in that moment. Like repair is also, by the way, where secure attachment builds. So if we're not making mistakes, we can't come back and repair. I might say a good mom takes care of her own mind and body so she can be as present as possible for her child, which means I got some forgiving to do of myself right now. Because if I keep spiraling about this horrible thing that I did, that kind of happened at the same time my daughter fell, then I'm not going to be able to be present, right?
Totally.
I think we can miss these opportunities to really look at what we're telling ourselves about cause and effect. I did not cause my daughter to fall. Being on the phone did not cause her fall, right? Kids fall all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. She could have fallen when I was standing right there looking at her. So I do think we want to separate the story we're telling ourselves from the facts. Usually the facts, I often say to the women in my coaching program, everything is neutral until we give it meaning. So facts are neutral. It's the story we put on things that causes all kinds of internal drama and then sometimes external drama. So I don't know if that answered your question, but those are some things that I had to muddle through in order to sort of put down whatever story I was telling myself that was keeping me in an agitated, distracted state.
Oh, that was an incredible answer. I hear you, and I'm sure our listeners did too. It really, like, the story can cause suffering, right? And what's so beautiful about motherhood is like we get to choose our beliefs, and we
Exactly.
get to look at them, and we don't just have to take these ones that societies or the magazines are telling us to. Like we get to choose. We have that power, and they're all going to be different. We all have different perspectives, you know. And I really love what you said about leaning in. You know, this comes back to your first C of curiosity. Like the first thing is get curious, you know, lean into that discomfort or that guilt feelings that is coming up, and first ask, is it true? Am I really guilty? Is it really my fault? Or like you said, even if I was paying attention to her, you know, she could have, it still could have happened, you know. And so I really love what you spoke about, you know, looking at the beliefs, shifting the story, because the more that we attach to these stories that we tell ourselves that perhaps are not even true, the more that they're just going to bring us down and suffer, and we'll stay in it. And then it's harder to get out of that spiral and those loops and thoughts, you know. So I love how you spoke about communicating and showing up and taking full responsibility and say, hey, you had an accident and I'm sorry that happened, but I'm here for you. You know, we're going to get through it together. You're not alone. And, you know, like kids are meant to experiment and try this and that, and they're going to fall. And this is a big thing for me because my mother, she's very paranoid at times, especially whenever we were younger. And that's because my my grandma was very much like that as well. But
Yeah.
I realized like we need to give our children the space to be and to make mistakes and fall and scrape their knees. We cannot protect them from everything. And that does not make us bad moms.
We also don't want to, because all of those examples you just gave fall, scrape our knees, make mistakes, get in quote unquote trouble. We don't want, we don't want crises to happen, of course, but crises are actually quite rare in the big scheme of things. We all want resilient kids.
Hmm.
We all want brave kids. But that resiliency and that bravery doesn't come on its own. It comes from the falls and getting back up and realizing they're okay.
Yeah.
This same child who's 16 just came back from a semester in Japan, where she lived in the south of Japan in an area where no one spoke English, where she went to a public school in Japan. And, there's no way that she would have done that if she didn't believe she could feel hard things and still be okay. So I
Mm.
think there's a way in which we provide these opportunities for our kids when we get out of their way, when we stop kind of micromanaging and being
Yeah.
sort of hyper vigilant, the way we can be to sort of make sure everything is just so in our kids' lives. And that actually gets in the way of the experiences that our kids need to be really steady, stable, resilient humans.
Yeah, I love that. Would you love to share more about your relationship with your girls?
Sure, of course. I would love to share. I mean, my poor girls. I've been doing this maternal mental health work since before they were born, right? So they've sort of grown up sort of watching me talk about them
Lucky
publicly.
them.
Um, Gosh, so I think it's worth saying that when my now 19-year-old was two and a half, and my 16-year-old was a baby, I had a moment where I was putting my baby to nap. I was giving her a nap. I was very rigid back then. Like it was like the naps had to be at the same time. And I felt like I had to control as much as I could in my life so that I felt grounded. And when things didn't go the way I wanted them to, my nervous system would escalate, and I didn't kind of yet have the tools to know how to ground. So I was putting my baby in for a nap, and my toddler came in to show me a picture she had drawn. And she was, by the way, like the most easy peasy child on the planet. She kind of still is, but like this is not a child who was, hard to parent, so to speak. But she came in and she had this huge smile on her face, and she wanted to show me this picture, and I lost it. I yelled because she was interrupting this putting my baby down for a nap. And I realized in that moment that my anxiety, remember I told you in the beginning, I had grown up, same, my parents had been anxious, so I had inherited their anxiety. And I'd grown up with so much anxiety and so much hypervigilance and so much need to be perfect and have things just so, that it was impacting my kids. That in that moment, it was more important for me to have my baby sleep at the quote unquote right time than it was for me to connect with my 2.5-year-old.
Mm.
And that was really the moment that I was like, something has to change. I'm not willing to project all my anxiety onto my girls. So I have done so much work and practice since then. And I have very, very close connected relationships with my girls. Sometimes I actually think they tell me too much. I know we all want our kids to tell us things, and sometimes I'm like, babe, my freshman in college, I'm like, babe, do you need anything from me around this? And because there's really nothing you can do when your parent, they got to figure it out themselves. And sometimes I'm like, I just don't know if I need to know that. So I have very open relationships with them. We have plenty of moments where we butt heads, because who doesn't when they're in
Mhm.
relationship with people? But we move through those things very quickly. And I think my daughters have no doubt how much I love them. They are both very secure, self-assured, adventurous, well-adjusted kids. I have worked since they were little. So, I founded a maternal mental health center here in Colorado that I ran for most of their childhood. So I was working a lot. I have sort of a special desire to make sure people understand that you can pursue things outside of motherhood and still have fulfilling, joyful, secure relationships with your kids. So what they are both living their lives and snuggling up with me at the end of the day. So to me, that's sort of a perfect representation of my relationship with my girls.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm sure there's, mamas out there listening who are thinking like, "Oh, I wish I would really love that with my teens or my young adults, whoever they are, girls or boys, And so if they're wondering how they can start to shift their relationship, perhaps it's more of one that like they don't tell anything to them and they just want to get closer to them, but they don't know where to start. What advice would you give that mama or even father or whoever?
Yep, great question. So, first of all, I want to say that I think the reason I have this relationship with my teenage daughters is because of the work I did when they were little. So, I would describe, can I take 2 minutes to explain what a secure attachment actually means?
Please
Because
do.
I don't want to take too much time here, but
Please do.
when I talk about secure attachment, just from a neuroscience and development perspective, the reason an attachment between a parent and their child, having that be secure is so important, is because that child will take the roadmap of that relationship and integrate it into how they see themselves and how they relate with the world around them. Okay. So a secure attachment really just means that that relationship is secure enough to withstand or tolerate all the coming and going, whether that's emotional coming and going or physical coming and going. Right. So an attachment is really driven by the parent because a child doesn't have a fully formed brain yet. So if I want to be a securely attached mother to my children, I have to know how to regulate my nervous system. I have to know how to take full responsibility for my experience rather than blaming the things around me for how I feel. My child not putting on her shoes, my kid not sleeping, my husband for, not coming home on time, the weather, whatever it is, right? I have to say, okay, I am responsible for how I feel. Those things are going to impact me, of course. But once it comes to sort of my own nervous system, a securely attached parent has to take full responsibility for that. So that means that I could show up the way you described when you were weaning your baby, or the way I described when my child was in the hospital, or on a more day-to-day moment, the way a parent shows up when their kid is in a cranky and pulling on you at dinner time, or when a child comes home from kindergarten and says no one sat with them at lunch, right? Or you're doing homework, or someone can't put their shoe on, or all those moments of distress, a securely attached parent can regulate from the inside first. Boundaries, of course, are important. So it's really useful for me to just reassure people that being a securely attached parent doesn't mean we're saying yes to everything all the time, right? But we're doing all of that from a regulated state. When I can be regulated, my child trusts that I'm a safe place to come home to, that I will be there. Doesn't necessarily mean always physically, but emotionally, psychologically, that I am a place that my child can feel completely seen, heard, and understood. And if I'm distracted by my own stress, I can't be that parent. I don't have to be perfect because remember, there's mistake and repair in there. We want to really understand how to repair in healthy ways. Boundaries are really important, but that is what a securely attached parent is. So I think the reason I have this relationship with my daughters where they come to me when they need support, they will come. They know that I'm going to provide neutral, loving support. The reason they have that relationship with me is because I learned how to do those things when they were little. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh,
Because
yeah.
sometimes we think we have to wait. And it's like, no, no, no. Let's start, or the sooner the better. Now,
Right.
let's say someone didn't kind of create that dynamic. Maybe we have someone listening who When their child is having a tantrum or is in a bad mood, they get agitated and they get stuck up in an agitated state with their child. It's never too late.
Never
It
too
is
late. You
never,
just read the words
ever,
on my mind.
ever too late. But it is going to be more about being curious, which, curiosity happens in the unknown. A lot of us fear uncertainty, but that moment of uncertainty and unknown is where curiosity happens. We can't be curious and both know at the same time, right? So being curious, grounding our nervous system, being curious is the way through those hard moments versus trying to fix and problem solve. I
Mm.
actually don't know if I answered the question you asked, but
Well, no, I think you did. I
okay.
mean, really, really going back to what we said at the beginning of what parenting actually means, conscious parenting. It's not so much about, blaming our children or focusing all our attention on them, but really kind of, taking responsibility for all of our actions and our thoughts and realizing like first and foremost, we need to parent ourselves so that we can show up as best as we can for our children. And I love how you said it's never too late. I mean, obviously, if you have a head start, great, all the better for your children, but it's never too late to start. And
Nope.
I love that you go back to the curiosity and also the word that I think most struck from your answer was when you said inside, like starting from that place inside. If you are really taking care of yourself, taking responsibility for all your actions and most importantly how you feel regardless of what's going on in your outer world, then nothing can phase you and you will be such a strong, masterful example. And that doesn't mean you're always perfect at it. I mean, who is?
Gosh, no, 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 no.
But you keep coming back to that place and you realize that the true home and the true calm is inside of you. And that's a place that is always there and always available to all of us all the time.
Little caveat, because it's really important. I think there is a very dangerous myth in motherhood that here's this term again, good moms, that good moms sacrifice themselves for their children.
Mm.
I will die on this mountaintop. This is something that I want to say with as much conviction as I possibly can. We cannot parent well from an empty tank. So when we quote unquote, put our children first all the time, we are doing such a disservice to our children.
Can you repeat this?
Yeah. When we are putting our children first all the time, we're doing an immense disservice to our children. Now, I think it's really important to remember that boundary setting, separation, doing those things we need to do so that we can take care of ourselves, whether that's sleep through the night,
Mhm.
time to wean a child, or spend time with friends during bedtime instead of being the one to tuck our child in, or pursue a career we love, or go to a yoga class, or go take a bath by ourselves with the door closed, right? Whatever those things
Or go to the
are.
bathroom.
Exactly. That those things are likely going to have some result in someone being uncomfortable. My child being disappointed that I'm not the one to tuck them in that night, right? A partner being frustrated that they are going to, I'm going to, need to be the one to do bedtime instead of having my help. That, right? That when we take care of ourselves, not everyone's going to like it all the time. And so we need to also come into this again with the understanding that the feelings are never the problem, that my child can feel disappointed and still be okay.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
my child can, someone can be angry at me and still love me at the same time. That when if I'm really going to fill myself up so that I have the resilience that is required to be that steady, secure parent, I have to also allow for emotional discomfort.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, please, mamas and dads, parents, please fill yourselves up first in service of.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be either or, of course, right? But just understanding that self-care doesn't necessarily mean going to get your nails done,
Right.
right? It might mean going to bed early and letting your partner tuck your kiddo in.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
might mean, you know, taking 20 minutes when you get home from work before jump into with your family and cook dinner to sort of pause in your car before you go inside and listen to your favorite music. It can look a million different ways, but we have to be filling ourselves up.
Yeah, I love this so much that you're touching on this, and I really just want to quickly add to it. And it's kind of like it's natural that I think a lot of moms kind of lose themselves early on, especially if they're new to it all. And it's like it only feels natural to want to serve your children, especially when they're
Of
just like
course.
they're the littlest people in the room, but they just take up the most attention. And it's like, you know, everything revolves around them, and it's like you just want to give, give, give. And this idea of being a good mom, that's what we do. But at the same time, like you say, how can you continue to give if your own cup is not full? And so I feel like so many mothers lose themselves in that regard. And so I love that you really spoke about this at the end. And I just want to share a little experience that may add to this, because a couple days ago, I used to do salsa dancing, and these are like late night socials. I don't do them anymore, but once a month they now have like a daytime social on Sundays. And this past Sunday, I had planned to go, but my little one had napped late, and it was just such a rough morning. And so there was a part of me that was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't go. Maybe she was already with her dad a lot in the morning. I'm like, he's gonna have to be with her another 3 hours at least. And I just like I was coming up with all these excuses in my mind to not go, because I'm like, I should be there. I should
Should.
be there for
All
her.
those shoulds.
Right, right. But then I'm like, you know what? I just thought about it. I'm like, but when do I ever do anything for myself? I'm like, I'm going to go, even though this resistance is coming up. I kind of just I was with it, and my partner even said, he was like, why aren't you gone yet? And when I was in the car driving on my way to the salsa social, I was like, oh my goodness, I realized that, like, I was trying to avoid myself from doing something for me, because I'm so used to being there for my little girl, but I caught myself. And so when the thought comes up and you become aware of it and you realize, okay, like I intentionally, consciously choose to take this time for myself, and I'm gonna damn enjoy it. It really is so beautiful to know that you are something else outside of motherhood. And I feel like this is a big thing. So many mamas, they get trapped in this belief that, like, oh, I'm a mom now, I can no longer go back to work or work while I'm being a mom. And so I love, because I know that you talk about also the achievement brain and the connection brain, and also how, like, high achieving women, sometimes they lose themselves in motherhood, but it's really about finding that fine balance. So if there's a mom listening who is like so lost in it right now, and she's really wanting to get back to, you know, you know, successful, work or whatever it may be, but she doesn't know where to start or find that fine balance while also continuing to be a mom. Like, what advice could you offer?
Yeah, I guess two big things pop in. I love your story, by the way. So that's the story will tie in. What I was going to say about your story, I'm going to tie into this. So
Okay.
all those shoulds, right? I should be with my child all the time. I shouldn't want, this is one thing I hear often too, Julia, is women who tend to be high performing, high achievers who want to go back to work, want to be away from their child, and suddenly think they shouldn't have that somehow that want makes them a bad mom,
Hmm.
right? So these shoulds and these shouldn'ts, that word exists outside of us. And I want to invite all of us to replace the word should with want or need. And the question is, what do you, mama, want or need in order to be your fullest expression of yourself?
Mm.
Because when we are our fullest expressions of ourselves, our children just get more of us. Relationships are all about energy. And if I am staying, by the way, if someone wants to stay home with their child, more power to you. So this is not a conversation about right, wrong, good, bad, but
Right.
for those mothers who don't want to be full-time moms, or who want to be working outside of the home, or maybe it's not even work, maybe it's volunteer or
Hmm.
salsa dancing or whatever it is, right? We will not, if we want to bring to the relationship with our children a full heart,
Hmm.
a full cup, a full expressed self, because that energy is contagious. My child is more likely to show up with a full heart and a full expressed self if she's mothered by someone who feels that. So the question is, are there things that you know you want and or need to do to access that part of yourself? And if the answer is yes, I invite you to consider the possibility that you're not doing it just for yourself, that you're doing those things for your child. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was something else I was going to say, and now it's totally gone. Yeah, I don't remember what the other. Oh, that the other one is just a part about relationships. Relationships are built in moments. It does that time actually has nothing to do with it, right? Yes, we don't want to spend no time with our children, but the depth of relationship we have with our child is not based on how much time I am with my child.
Right.
It's based on how am I showing up when I am with my child. And that is, yes, if you choose to work outside of the home or go do activities out of the home, you will miss some things, right? If you're not around all the time, things will happen when you are not there. That does not have to be a problem, right? We want to just set up sort of a different mindset that allows for the variety of ways that relationships are built, to understand that if I'm feeling really disappointed that my child took my first step when I was not there, that's okay. It makes sense I'm feeling disappointed. Of course, that disappointment doesn't have to mean something bigger than just a wish that I didn't express, right? Something that I wanted that didn't happen. So, yeah, I just want to remind everyone that those secure, strong bonds that we want so badly with our kids, they happen in the moment. They don't happen in the past. They don't happen in the future. They don't happen in the fixing and the doing and the planning. They happen in those moments that we are with our kids. And those moments come and go.
Yeah, absolutely. The quality of the moment is so important and how present you are. And, I think also shifting the focus, like, you could focus on the fact that you missed that milestone or you were not there, but then you could focus on something positive because there's always something positive in every situation. And you could be like, oh, but she was with her grandfather, or, oh, someone was there to witness it. And so you can always change the story. You're the narrator and you get to choose what you can focus on, just like we can choose our thoughts and our beliefs. And so, yeah, I had something else on my mind that now is coming past me, but it's okay. I would love to thank you so much for all your perspective and all this beautiful wisdom that you're sharing. I know that I got so much out of our conversation, as I'm sure others will as well. I'd love to ask, how can listeners or mamas connect with you if they'd love to continue working or continue to hear you and work with you?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. I've loved this conversation, by the way. I think it's always so fruitful for me to be talking with moms who are at your stage as well,
Hmm.
because that is the other thing, right? It doesn't feel like it's going fast when we're in it, but I swear my 19-year-old was just two. So it is just amazing to sort of be reminded, of course, of all the beauty and
Yeah.
chaos and mess and excitement. It's
Oh my
all part of
goodness.
this journey. Um, Instagram at Kate Kripke. I am very active there. If any of your listeners come over, please introduce yourself to me. I really love talking with folks on the back end. My website, katekripke.com. There is a little masterclass on there that talks a little bit more about sort of what the root cause of anxiety and guilt and overwhelm in motherhood is, and how we can shift things pretty quickly. So that is on my website, also in my Instagram bio. And I have this 12-week program called the Calm Connection Accelerator that I created. That's really based on my 20 years of work as a clinician and a mom. And I'm just really taking moms through a system that moves them very quickly from anxiety, guilt, and overwhelm to calm and that confidence and that deep connection and secure attachment that we're looking for. So people can find information about that on my website as well.
Beautiful. And you also have a podcast and a book that
Ah,
you
yes.
wrote?
Yes, I have a podcast, Motherhood Uncut. We're about to launch season 8 of that podcast.
Wow.
And my book, Reinventing Supermom, can be found on Amazon. And that is a book that was written specifically for moms who are experiencing postpartum
Okay.
depression and anxiety. And my daughter, little fun fact, made the cover for that book.
Oh, wow.
Look, I
I'd
have
love
one
to
right
see
here.
it.
Let me show you this cover. I have one right here. So my
Oh,
daughter made that cover, Reinventing Supermom, Support, Encouragement, and Strategies for New Mothers Who Feel Lost. I published that 4 years ago. So she was what's
wow.
16 minus 4? She was 12 when she
12.
made.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Oh,
I
that's
know.
beautiful, Kate. Oh, I love
Thank you.
that. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and I was gonna say something else. I actually did remember too what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
And when you
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
speaking about the fullest, like when you can be the fullest expression of yourself, I just want moms to notice when you are kind of in that flow state and you're feeling good because you know that you're, you know, treating yourself the way you need to be treated and you're being present in the fullest expression of yourself. Just notice how your little ones or how your people around you, not even little ones, how anyone around you is mirroring that and reacting in regards to you being who you are. You came here to shine. And I've had moments of that. I've had tastes of it when I'm feeling like myself and present and the expression of who I am. Like my daughter, she's just reflecting that back and she's dancing and laughing and she because she feels safe that she can be her authentic self too. We're allowing by just being that and we're inspiring others to be that as well.
Ah, hallelujah. I love that you just said that. So true.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so, so much. I really enjoyed this as well. And I know that there's going to be so many mamas listening to this who are going to feel inspired and that they also, it's never too late to move into more presence and connection in, in the
No.
relationships with those in your life. So, and this conversation also reminds us that motherhood is not meant to be done alone. If it feels that way, it's an illusion. Know that it's never too late to get help or to connect or just, be heard and be seen because we all deserve that.
Ah, that is so true. We are not supposed to mother alone. So I love what you guys are doing on your podcast, and I think these conversations are just imperative. So thank you for the opportunity to talk with you over here.
Well, thank you for being here and all your beautiful wisdom and stories and vulnerability that you shared with us. I also will have all your links, like for your book and podcast, everything, ways to connect with you that people can just see in the description of this video. And with all that to say, I'm going to invite our little girl to wish everybody a farewell. Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you.
For watching.
Tiki Rotten.
Say have a great day.
Have a good day.
I love you.
I love you.
See you soon.
Soon.
Hey, bye. Bye, Joe. Mwah.